I remember the day the world first whispered my name in fear. I wasn't born a king, I was born hunted. I turned the steppe into my throne and my enemies into dust. I united tribes that hated each other and broke empires that thought they'd last forever, carving scars into history that still bleed. They call me a monster, but only I can tell you the truth of how I became the man who changed the world forever. History remembers my conquests, but it forgets the silence before the storm, before armies rode under my banners, before kingdoms trembled at my shadow. There was only a boy buried in the ashes of his own world. To understand the empire I built, you must first understand the wilderness that shaped me. I am Temujin. I was born on the Mongol steppe, one of the most violent environments on Earth. Here, winter can freeze a man in minutes, and a single mistake can wipe out an entire family. If you grew up where you live now, imagine surviving without houses, crops, or walls. Only horses, tents, and the strength of your clan. That was my world. My father, Yasuge, was a respected leader of the Borjigan. He arranged my marriage when I was 9, as was normal among the tribes. But on his way back home, he accepted food from the Tatars, an old enemy of our people. They poisoned it. He never reached our camp alive. Do you know what happens to a family when its leader dies in the steppe? You lose protection, you lose status, you lose food. And in our culture, a clan doesn't carry dead weight. The Taichiud, who were supposed to support us, abandoned my family and took our herds. For a nomad, losing your animals is like losing your home, your income, and your identity all at once. We survived on roots, rodents, and anything we could trap or chase on foot. Sometimes the only warmth we had came from the embers we guarded like treasure. Nights were so cold that even the water inside our tent froze solid. Hunger wasn't a feeling, it was a constant threat. But those years turned me into something different. I learned to track animals by broken grass patterns, to read wind direction, to judge distances on horseback without thinking. I understood the alliances and rivalries between clans long before most boys understood basic survival. And by 12, one truth was already carved into me. On the steppe, justice has no value unless you have the strength to enforce it. If you were in my place then, no father, no clan, no security, what would you have done to survive? Most people break. I didn't. Those years created the instinct that defined my future. No one would ever control my fate again. Bekter was my older half-brother, strong, proud, and convinced that age alone made him superior. After my father died and our clan abandoned us, the little food we found was the difference between living another day or freezing to death that night. In those conditions, every piece of meat, every handful of berries, every rabbit mattered. Bekter began taking food before the rest of us could eat. He didn't steal out of desperation. He did it because he believed he had the right. And on the steppe, taking food from your family during famine isn't a small offense. It's a threat to survival. One person's selfishness can kill the weakest, then the next, until the entire family collapses. Ask yourself something. If you were starving and someone stronger than you started taking the only food your family had, how long would you stay quiet? Kasar and I warned him. He ignored us. Day after day, the same pattern continued. My mother, Hoilun, said nothing, because even she knew the situation was tearing us apart. In our culture, a family that can't control itself becomes vulnerable, and vulnerable families get erased. So we made a decision most people today would never even imagine. We waited for Bekter outside the camp, bows ready. He understood what was happening the moment he saw us. He didn't beg, he didn't fight. He only asked that we spare our youngest brother, Belgutai, who had followed him. Then we killed him. 2 arrows, no ceremony, no shouting. To someone living in your world, this might sound like madness, but on the Mongol steppe, leadership wasn't measured by age or birth. It was measured by who could protect the group. Leaders had to be willing to make decisions that others were too afraid to make, even if those decisions cut deep. That day taught me something I never forgot. A leader who avoids hard choices destroys everyone under him. A leader who confronts them, no matter the cost, keeps his people alive. If you were in my place, what would you have done? They captured me when I was just a boy. The Taichud clan, my father's rivals, wanted to erase the name Temujin before it became a threat. They locked a kang, a heavy wooden yoke, around my neck. If you've never worn one, imagine carrying a door on your shoulders day and night. You can't scratch your face, you can't sleep properly, and every movement reminds you that you are someone else's property. The Taichud didn't beat me constantly. Humiliation was enough. They made me sit near the camp entrance so every visitor could see the orphan boy pretending to be noble. During the day, I hauled water, dragged firewood, and endured the stares of children who were taught that my suffering was entertainment. And yet, while they laughed, I watched. Their routines, their guards, who was lazy, who was cruel, who looked away when no one was watching. A slave has one advantage. People forget he can think. Let me ask you something. If you were trapped with no weapons, no allies, and no chance of rescue, what would you look for first? Weakness, routine, or opportunity? I chose all three. One night, when the guards relaxed and the fire died low, a member of the Soldas family, one of the few with enough humanity to pity me, whispered that the man assigned to watch me had fallen asleep. They hid me behind piles of wool, shattered the wooden yoke with an axe, and pointed toward the river. If they were caught helping me, they would have been executed. Remember that. Even in the harshest steppe clans, compassion could survive. I ran through the darkness barefoot, knowing that if dawn found me, I was dead. That escape wasn't luck. It was the moment I proved something to myself. I didn't need strength to defeat stronger enemies. I only needed to think faster, notice more, and move before they realized their mistake. From that night forward, I was no longer Temujin the slave. I was Temujin, the one who escaped the Taichiud, and soon they would regret letting me live. When I escaped slavery and returned to my family, I was still just a young man with no tribe, no herd, and no protection. But I had one thing left, my Anda, my blood brother, Jamuka. When we reunited after years apart, he embraced me as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Jamuka came from aristocratic lineage. He believed leaders were born, not made. I had lived something different: hunger, exile, betrayal. Those experiences taught me that loyalty doesn't come from your father's name. It comes from what you can do. Let me ask you something. If you had to choose a leader for a dangerous journey, would you pick the noble with the finest horse, or the man who survived as an outcast and still stands? The steppe started answering that question for me. While Jamuka attracted nobles, I attracted everyone he ignored. Herders tired of being bullied by clans, hunters with no stable home, orphans who slept with knives under their blankets, and even outcasts who wore no clan markings at all. Many historians think this was accidental. Believe me, it wasn't. I chose men who had something to prove, men who followed because they believed their skills mattered. They came to my camp with whatever they had: 3 goats, a rusty bow, or just their own determination. I treated them as equals. I promoted by ability, not by birth. That alone made me dangerous. Soon we tested ourselves. Small raids against rival clans, fast, precise strikes. We didn't have numbers, but we had discipline and initiative. When a man captured valuable horses, I rewarded him publicly. When someone broke formation, I corrected it instantly. Word spread that Temujin's camp was different, strict, fair, and rising. And Jamuka noticed. Our brotherhood still existed, but the steppe was choosing sides. He represented the old world, bloodlines, privilege, tradition. I represented something new, something many feared, but even more desired. A leader anyone could follow if they earned their place. Remember this: leaders aren't forged in peace. They are forged when desperate men decide to believe in you. That was the beginning of my power. You already know this. Blood brotherhood on the steppe was sacred, but nothing was stronger than ambition. When Jamuka and I finally split, every clan had to choose between 2 visions of Mongolia. His world was the old one, aristocrats ruling because of their lineage. Mine was the new one, leaders rising because of their skill. That division tore the steppe apart. The first clash came suddenly. Jamuka raided a camp loyal to me and slaughtered the young, an act meant to terrorize the tribes. Instead, it backfired. Families who once feared choosing sides came to me enraged, demanding justice. Tell me, if you heard that someone murdered the children of your allies, who would you follow? The noble responsible, or the man willing to fight him? Our war lasted for years. Jamuka fought with the discipline of the aristocracy. Rigid ranks, traditional formations, slow decisions. I fought differently. I divided my forces, attacked from multiple angles, and feigned retreats to break his confidence. The steppe favors the mind that adapts, not the one that repeats old patterns. One decisive moment came at the battle near the Kangai Mountains. We cut off his supply lines, forced him into rough terrain, and pressured him until his own allies defected. Many historians claim Jamuka was outnumbered. The truth is that his own rigidity defeated him. Eventually, he was captured and brought before me. My childhood friend, my rival, my mirror. He didn't beg. He simply asked for an honorable death without bloodshed, the death of a noble. I granted it, not because he was my brother, but because a leader must show strength without cruelty. After his death, the tribes gathered at the Kurultai of 1206. They lifted me on a white felt carpet and named me Genghis Khan, universal ruler. In that moment, Mongolia wasn't just united. A force was unleashed that would create the largest land empire in human history, and this was only the beginning. The Jin dynasty believed we were nothing more than noisy riders from the north. They thought walls, bureaucrats, and armies of infantry would protect them. They were wrong. When they demanded tribute from me, they exposed their weakness, arrogance, and arrogance blinds. Their generals laughed when scouts reported how fast we moved. They didn't understand the power of a people raised on horseback. My warriors could ride 100 miles in a single day, switching horses before exhaustion could slow them. Tell me, how do you fight an enemy that appears at dawn, disappears by noon, and strikes your supply line before nightfall? But speed alone wouldn't defeat an empire. I needed to break their cities, so I adapted. I recruited Chinese and Khitan engineers, studied siege engines, and absorbed their knowledge faster than they expected. We built catapults, trebuchets, siege towers, and even used gunpowder bombs. Imagine that. Nomads learning the art of taking down fortress after fortress. Something no steppe army had ever done. Espionage became another weapon. I used defectors, merchants, and captured officials to map cities, discover weak gates, and spread rumors designed to fracture morale. Psychological warfare? Essential. When a city resisted, we made the consequences unforgettable. When a city surrendered, we spared them, letting future targets choose survival over destruction. At Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, the Jin finally understood the truth. Their walls couldn't save them. Their armies couldn't match our mobility. Their commanders couldn't predict a force that split into multiple divisions, attacked from several directions, then vanished into the horizon, only to return twice as strong. After the fall of their great strongholds, a new reputation spread across Asia. The Mongols were inevitable. Entire cities later opened their gates before a single arrow was fired. Fear traveled faster than any rider, and fear became one of my greatest generals. The Khwarezmian Empire could have been my ally. I sent merchants first, men of peace, to open trade. Then I sent ambassadors to formalize it. What did I receive in return? My merchants were robbed, executed, their goods stolen. My envoys, men protected by every law of diplomacy, were humiliated and murdered. Tell me what ruler would allow that insult to live? On the steppe, killing an envoy is not just an offense. It is a declaration of war. It means the enemy believes you are too weak to respond. The Shah of Khwarezmia made that mistake. He thought distance, deserts, and his massive cities would shield him. He underestimated how far my armies could reach when fueled by purpose. I assembled my largest force. Mongols, Turks, Chinese engineers, every specialist I had trained. We crossed the Kizilkum Desert, a route the Shah believed impossible. That was the point. You win wars by doing what the enemy won't even consider. Our sieges became legendary. At Nishapur and Merv, we used engineers to divert rivers and flood defenses. At others, we launched burning oil, gunpowder bombs, and wave after wave of disciplined assault units. Chroniclers recorded that we slaughtered 1 million souls in Nishapur, and perhaps another 700,000 in Merv alone. This wasn't rage. It was systematic destruction, designed to erase the empire that dared insult us. Some cities fought. They were reduced to ash. Others understood the message. More than 30 cities surrendered the moment they heard the thundering of hooves in the distance. No battle, no resistance. Fear opened gates faster than battering rams. The Shah fled like a frightened animal, running west until even the edge of his empire rejected him. He died alone, hunted by the consequences of his arrogance. To this day, people speak of the fall of Khwarezmia as a warning. If you betray a merchant, that is a crime. If you betray an envoy, that is an insult. But if you betray the great Khan, you invite annihilation. When the Khwarezmian Empire fell, many believed my campaigns would end. They didn't understand me. Conquest was never about land. It was about eliminating threats before they reached my borders. So my riders pushed in every direction, north into Siberia, east into Korea, west into Persia and Central Asia, and south toward the edges of India. Look at a map today and imagine this. My armies crossed territories that modern nations struggled to patrol, even with highways and satellites. My strength did not come from numbers, but from the men who led my armies. Subutai, the greatest strategist the world has ever ignored, planned campaigns across continents, striking enemies thousands of kilometers apart within days. Jebe, my arrow, could outride any scout and dismantle armies twice his size. Mukali ruled northern China with such discipline that even my enemies respected him. Tell me, how many rulers can say their generals were feared as much as their armies? Our empire moved on information. The YAM system, relay stations placed across thousands of kilometers, allowed messages to travel faster than any kingdom had ever seen. A courier could cross my empire in days, not months. Speed is power. Information is power. Combine both, and you rule the battlefield before the first arrow is fired. To keep order, I created the Yasa, a law code that punished corruption, protected the weak, enforced discipline, and unified dozens of tribes and nations. Under my rule, merchants could travel from the Yellow Sea to the Caspian with a single passport and expect safety. And unlike the kings of the West, I never forced a man to change his faith. Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Taoists, they all worshipped freely under my banners. A united empire cannot survive if it tries to change the soul of every people it absorbs. Mobility, intelligence, discipline, law, tolerance. These were the pillars that held up the greatest land empire the world has ever known. And I, Genghis Khan, built it from nothing but a horse, a bow, and a will unbreakable. When I turned my armies toward Western Sia, many wondered why I bothered. Their kingdom was small, but they had defied me, refusing to send troops during my war against Khwarezmia. On the steppe, loyalty is everything. Their betrayal demanded an answer. Even then, age was tightening its grip on me. Old injuries ached, fevers struck without warning, and the strength I once relied on began to fade. But I could not show weakness. A Khan who hesitates invites chaos. So I led the campaign myself, despite the pain that followed me like a shadow. Ask yourself, would you march into battle knowing your body was failing? I had no choice. Western Shia resisted fiercely. Their fortresses were strong, their warriors disciplined, but discipline means little against inevitability. My generals and I dismantled their defenses piece by piece. Yet in the chaos of that campaign, whether by fall from a horse, old wounds tearing open, or illness, my body finally betrayed me. Historians argue about the cause. Let them. All I remember is the moment I could no longer stand without help. What mattered next was secrecy. If my enemies learned I was dying, they would strike at once. So I issued my final command: hide my death until the empire was secure. When I finally exhaled my last breath, only a handful knew. My burial followed an ancient tradition of silence. No monuments, no markers. My escort escorted me to a place unknown. Then they were executed to protect the secret. The soldiers who killed them were also executed. Then riders drove thousands of horses across the land, trampling every trace of the grave. Even today, people hunt for my tomb. They dig, they scan, they dream. They will find nothing. The empire continued to expand for years after my death. That is why we hid the truth. To prevent rebellion, to keep the world believing the great Khan still rode at the head of his armies. I disappeared into the earth, but my shadow remained. You already know my tomb has never been found. That was my intention. No stone, no monument, no place for enemies to desecrate. While other rulers built pyramids and towers to be remembered, I left nothing. And yet my name endures longer than theirs. Ask yourself, which lasts longer, a statue or a legacy that reshapes continents? After my death, power passed to my sons. Ogedei became Great Khan, chosen not for strength alone, but for discipline and stability. Under his rule, the empire expanded even farther, into Eastern Europe, into the heart of the Middle East, and deeper into China. Tolui guarded our homeland, leading campaigns with unmatched ferocity, while Chagatai kept order in Central Asia with a strict adherence to law. 3 sons, 3 pillars, and the empire grew larger than any I personally conquered. My laws, the Yasa, did not die with me. They regulated trade, punished corruption, enforced military discipline, and allowed people of dozens of cultures to coexist without tearing each other apart. My army's organization, decimal units, elite vanguards, disciplined reserves, became the backbone of an empire that could move faster than any civilization before it. And the Yam, our network of horse stations, created the fastest communications system the world had ever seen. A silk road of information that knit continents together. Remember this, We allowed every faith to live without fear. Mongol rule brought tolerance in places where civilized empires burned, banned, or erased beliefs they disliked. Under my banners, Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and shamans all prayed freely. As for my blood, historians say that today, nearly 1% of all men carry my lineage. 16 to 20 million descendants. Consider that. My body vanished, but my blood still rides across the world. My tomb is lost. My empire transformed nations. My laws shaped centuries. And my name never left history. If you enjoyed this journey through the rise of the Great Khan, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and tell me which part of Genghis Khan's story surprised you the most.